And I hope you're all having a fantastic week so far. Well, it's been a little while since my family got back from our short vacation over to West Palm Beach, Florida, and we really had a fantastic time while we were there. We enjoyed the beach and, of course, stopped at quite a few places along the way to track down some new pressed pennies and even some special collectible medallions as well. Now, I will say, unfortunately, I did run into a few places that their machines were just not working, which is always very disappointing and even discouraging to some of us collectors when you've traveled all that way looking forward to pressing a new set of coins for your collection and you're just not able to. But that's what I want to go over in today's video. I'm going to review what I do whenever I encounter that dreaded out of order sign. The first thing I do is visit a nearby employee. Many of the pressed penny machines are either in a gift shop or near one that would have someone available. This can do a couple things. One, it lets them know the machine is not working, just in case they weren't already aware, so they can then contact their vendor to have it serviced and hopefully fixed for future guests. Plus, in some instances, I have found that they may have extra pressed pennies available behind the counter that they can give you. Now, if they don't have any extra elongated coins at that time, the next thing you can try is see if possible about leaving your mailing address with them, along with an adequate number of quarters and pennies, or maybe even dollar bills if they've got one of the newer machines that has the higher price. This way they can press the coins as soon as the machine has been fixed and send them back to you. You'll also obviously want to make sure you're including a few extra dollars to help them cover the cost to ship those to you once they're available. I have tried this a few times along my travels and only had a couple places offer to do so. I think a lot of these places may just not be comfortable holding on to your money for an unknown period of time. They're just not always sure exactly when the machine is going to be fixed. But every so often you will come across a place that is more than happy to try and help. One place I do remember was a mini golf course in Bradenton Beach, Florida that had one of the most amazing machines I've ever seen. It looked like a sunken pirate ship, but unfortunately it just didn't work. When I spoke to the nearby employee, it ended up being the owner. He was so apologetic that the machine wasn't working, and he was more than happy to take down my info, and sure enough, after a few weeks, the pennies arrived in my mail. This leads us into probably my most used solution and the one I've had the most success with over the years. Basically, once I get home, I write up a little letter that I'm going to send back to the location that had the out of order machine, and I'll be sure to include enough coins to cover all the pressings, as well as a self-addressed stamped envelope so that they can easily get those coins back to me once they have them. So let's take a look at one of my letter templates, and I'll show you how I prefer to package it all up and send it over to them. While we were at the Cox Science Center and Aquarium, they had 3 separate machines, each with 1 penny design. 2 of the machines worked fine, but that third one just wasn't working. Here's a look at the letter I typed up for the Science Center. As you can see, I mentioned that my family had recently visited and had a great time. I was using their pressed penny machines and one of them was out of order. If possible, could someone please help press the coin we had missed? Here you can see that I actually included a picture of the machine and the coin design I was interested in. Since this place had more than one machine, I wanted to be very specific with which design I wanted. Of course, I take lots of video and pictures of all the penny machines I visit to share with you here on our YouTube channel and over at my blog, so this was no issue for me. But many collectors don't take pictures of the machines, and that's no problem. Just make sure you list in your letter exactly which design you need, and if you remember, try to include where the machine was located, like in the gift shop by the exit to the zoo, or outside the restrooms on the 2nd floor by the blue whale skeleton. Anything you can do to help make this easy on them will help increase your chances of a successful mail away. Next, be sure to include the necessary coins to press, which could include your favorite copper pre-1982 pennies and quarters, or if it's one of those newer machines like we mentioned earlier, some dollar bills. I usually like to place them in a small zip-top bag and attach them to a few index cards in an attempt to try and keep them from moving around too much during shipping. You always want to make sure and include a self-addressed stamped envelope so they can return the coins to you. They are doing you the favor and shouldn't be expected to cover the cost to ship them back. Put everything in one larger envelope. I usually include attention guest services or attention customer service just to help it get to someone that is most likely to help. Then seal it up and ship it out. Just be aware that this process is not always a quick one. I've had some mailaways that have taken 2 or 3 months before I've received anything back, and in 1 or 2 cases I've still never received anything back at all and just kind of wrote them off because I have to take another trip out there to press them in person, or maybe the machine disappeared, you never know. But I find in most cases it's going to just take a few weeks before you'll get your pennies back. It all really just depends on how long it takes before their machine is fixed and ready to press again. Now here are a couple envelopes that were recently returned to me. First is from the Cox Science Center, and as you can see, they used my self-addressed stamped envelope to return the coin. I also received a nice letter from the person that offered to help, and amazingly they included a free admission ticket for the next time I come back, which is extremely generous. This is certainly not a common thing to get, but I will admit from time to time these places will include some fun little extras like a postcard, magnet, or even a pin. I wouldn't always count on getting something like this, but it is certainly a very sweet gesture when it happens. The second one I received was from the Manatee Lagoon in Apollo Beach. They just had one machine, but it was completely out of service. Even though I did include a return envelope, this very kind manager that was helping me went ahead and couriered the pennies back to me to make sure they arrived quickly and safely. It was another very kind thing of them to do, but does not happen very often and should not be expected. So make sure you're always including a self-addressed stamped envelope so they've got a way to get those pennies back to you at your expense. Well, there you have it. That's how I attempt to acquire pressed pennies from machines that were either broken or unavailable during my travels. As I said earlier, I find if you try to make it as easy for these locations as possible, you will have a much higher success rate. In all the times I've done this, there's only been 1 or 2 instances that I just never got anything back, and I really truly just assumed that the package got messed up in the mail somehow. But for the most part, I find people at these locations are more than happy to help us collectors out in getting our much wanted pennies. So let me know down in the comments below, have you tried any of these options in your own travels and have they been successful? I'd love to hear all about it. As always, thank you for hanging out with me again this week, and as always, be sure to keep on pressing.